So you use the term threat intelligence, and I like what you said about threat intelligence being one of the least appreciated and or most least understood elements of SIEM solutions. So for that reason, can you define like what you mean by threat intelligence, like and how that might be beneficial to an SMB?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's probably most important to understand is the difference between threat data and threat intelligence. And the way that I might describe this is that a piece of threat data might be something like a thumbprint or an indicator, right? So it might be a piece of information, whether that is a hash or a domain address or IP address, right? That gives us some indication that that we can correlate against the activities in our environment to identify whether one of our systems is communicating with a malicious system. So that might be threat data. There are a lot of ways and a lot of resources to get threat data or threat information into a SIEM. Again, if it's not highly actionable, fully baked intelligence, which I'll describe in a second, that really leaves your own security resources, if you have them, to make those connections between what the threat data is alerting on in my environment and what's happening in my environment. So a threat data can give us an indication of, hey, here's a system, it communicated with a bad IP address, right? And that can be done through a SIEM. Threat intelligence, I would argue, it gives you much more context about what is happening in your environment, right? So it might not just be a piece like an IP address, or it might not just be a hash or some kind of indicator of compromise, but it might be more kind of higher level or more sophisticated types of TTPs or tools, tactics, and procedures that cyber criminals use. The way that we implement threat intelligence in AT&T cybersecurity and our threat detection and response tools is our AT&T Alien Labs team is actually taking threat data, and that comes from many sources, one of which is the AT&T Alien Labs Open Threat Exchange, which I'll come back to in a second. But we're taking that threat data, and that team is actually is transforming that into threat intelligence. That includes correlation rules and directives that our platform uses to automatically detect threats, so that you're not just getting a lot of noise and a lot of alerts that might result in false positives or kind of volatile types of indicators, but rather you're getting more kind of high level information to work.
I want to just kind of summarize that a little bit because I loved what you said. So it sounds like what you said, and correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds as if you said you're sitting out there at AT&T and you got all of this data that's coming from all of your customers, and you've got these super smart brainiacs that are sitting in the back room. They're looking at this data. They're using that data and the bad things that are happening in all those other places to protect me automatically.
Absolutely. And let me share with you.
That's cool as hell.
That is intelligence. I want to share one more analogy around this because I think this helps to simplify it as well. And this I stole directly from our CTO. You might think of threat data as someone telling you someone is going to kill you. Someone is out to kill you, right? That might be threat data. It might be a piece of information that you get that's not highly actionable, but might make you a little paranoid, might make you start looking around or looking over your shoulder for more information or clues. Threat intelligence would be something more like, someone is trying to kill you. They will be coming for you at 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. They will be parking a white van outside of your environment or outside of your house. And they'll be carrying a pistol and they'll be dressed in all black. That is threat intelligence. And you can imagine there's a pretty big difference in quality and a difference in how actionable that information is, right? And I think that is the crux of having any kind of SIEM deployment. If you are evaluating, demoing, looking at a SIEM, if you can't get to that answer, like show me how I would use all of the context that I'm getting in this environment.
I love that word. Yep.
All of that threat context. Show me how I would use that to immediately understand what is going on in this environment. How am I at risk? What has been affected? And how that's really the crux of being able to do good threat detection.